right, now to the case of Kay Boisen, a retired intensive care nurse from the Sunshine State. The Queensland Government has launched legal action against Ms Boisen, suing her for $40,000. That's right, $40,000. Why? Well, it turns out Queensland Health miscalculated her pay, multiplying the amount payable for her period of long service leave by 4, thanks to a conceded system error. Now, this bungled, mistake-ridden payment process, a process which Queensland Health admits was of their own doing, saw Kay receive a sum of $41,806, a figure the Queensland Government says she's not entitled to. So what's the government doing now about it? Well, they want their cash back. The heartless Palaszczuk government is chasing down a retired nurse, an ICU nurse for that matter, for an error she didn't make and did not know about, stubbornly refusing to release her from her liability. And there's many, many more, hundreds more of these particular nurses that they're going after. And get this, now to reclaim the money, the government is relying on a 1924 New Zealand legal loophole which allows them to pursue an old debt. Why? Well, because their demand for repayment is outside the 12 months allowed under industrial law. So they're going after her with a Kiwi law, not an Aussie law. What a disgrace. An ICU nurse who's worked hard all her life to care for the people of Queensland, and now the Queensland Government treats her like this. Kay fears she's only the tip of the iceberg. There are concerns that this 2010 payroll debacle could rear its head for hundreds of nurses like her, retired, vulnerable and unaware of the until now hidden glitch that saw her overpaid. Now, we caught up with Kay and her union advocate Jack Maguire just a short time ago. Kay Boisen, how has this affected you personally?
Well, it all came a very big shock because I didn't know about this issue until 3 weeks before I actually finished, or 4 weeks before I finished work. And I expected to finish work, start on my superannuation funding and have a happy, carefree retirement. But I was just called into a meeting and it was explained to me that this mistake had been made and that they would be pursuing me for repayment.
Do you feel like you're being picked on?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Why you?
And I don't know why, because I don't know why, but I suspect with the I worked through the whole payroll debacle
yep.
of 2010, and was I suspicious that not everything was going to go swimmingly until I'd finished? No, I always suspected there might be problems, but nothing like this, nothing.
Now, you had 20 years in ICU, so you've seen a lot. You're pretty resilient, but this has really rocked you, hasn't it? From a health perspective, you've been cruel.
Absolutely. And it affects every part of your life. There's not really a day goes by that it doesn't come to your consciousness. It's a huge amount of money for me, and it's a substantial amount of my savings. And so it affects how I thought that I would travel, how I thought that I would spend I'm scared to spend too much just in case. And certainly from sleep patterns and general health. In fact, it was only 6 months after this was brought to my attention that I had a small stroke. I was very lucky that I haven't got any physical deficit from that, but I still have that damage done. And so it's affected every aspect of my life.
Jack Maguire from the NPAQ, which is the union, the nurses' union that is representing Kay, this doesn't seem to be the behaviour of a compassionate Labor government.
No, Gleeso, and you would think that perhaps this is a bureaucrat that's made this decision, but this has actually come off the back of us writing to the Minister, Cameron Dick, asking for him to show some compassion, show that he has a heart, and to absolve these nurses of liability, particularly in circumstances where the government, the Bligh government, absolved IBM of liability, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, yet they'll still go after the nurses. And now the minister's doubling down, and we've seen this claim in the Magistrates' Court.
It is quite extraordinary too, viewers, because what they're doing, the Queensland Government, is they're relying on a 1927 New Zealand law to try and beat the statute period. So take us through the legal complexities of this case, Jack.
So essentially any deductions for an overpayment should happen within 12 months under the Industrial Act, Queensland Industrial Act. What they're doing is they're saying that, well, actually there is no statute of limitations now because money wasn't appropriated from a consolidated fund properly. Seems pretty outrageous though, considering, again, they gave a waiver for IBM but not for these nurses.
Are there any other people in Queensland in Kay's situation?
So we represent roughly 10% of nurses in Queensland. We're aware of about 30, so we suspect there would be over 300.
Wow.
We're not holding back at all on the full-throated defence. We've briefed the Honourable Joe Ludwig and a QC. We want to make that defence publicly available for any nurse that is affected by this so that they can defend themselves. If that's even a QNMU nurse, so be it.
Now, Kay, you did everything right. You know, you were one of these people who you're clearly law-abiding. I bet you haven't even had a speeding ticket.
I tried to structure my lead-up, my transition to retirement, being thoughtful to our small unit. We don't have a great pool of staff to call upon when someone leaves at the spur of the moment. I put my resignation in 8 months before the date that I actually retired. The leave that probably that they've recognised in this last months before I retired, they offered me leave and I put an application form in for that at the end of October, and it didn't take effect until the 20th of January. So there was more than ample time for this issue to be found. I was reassured in the April that I had what I thought was my leave entitlement. It wasn't until 3 or 4 weeks, the start of June, 3 or 4 weeks before I finished, that it was told to me.
What would you say to Anastasia Palaszczuk if she was watching tonight when, you know, she is a woman with compassion. She does have empathy for Queenslanders, and we saw that during the fires. What would you say to her if she was sitting here now?
This is a great deal of money to me, and I don't believe I'm the only one. I really don't. And I think it's going to become more evident in the fact that I'm one of a very large group of baby boomers who have worked for Queensland Health throughout, well, for a long time. I've done 2 stints with Queensland Health for 35 years, my employment with Queensland Health. So I think there's a lot of us out there that are now looking to retire, and I can't believe I'm the only one that's had this issue.
Absolutely. Jack, what would you say to the Premier if she was sitting here?
Well, I think you need to look at the circumstance of the case. I mean, this isn't even just money that's ended up in your account. This is...
And she did the right thing. And she did nothing wrong.
This is long service leave being added on. So who watches their long service leave? I don't know. But there is a directive from her work saying, you need to go and take your long service leave. She said, yeah, fine, I'll go and take my long service leave. Went and got paid for a long service leave, came back, and now they're chasing her for her money in her retirement. It's outrageous.
So you've got the gloves off. What happens now, Jack?
We're, as I said, launching a full-throated defence. We're hoping this will be the test case for all those other nurses in Queensland, so we can hopefully protect them as well. We'll be in the Magistrates Court very shortly. But interestingly, Gleeso, this is also going to be the test case. You might remember earlier in the year, the Queensland Government put out a memo saying that we couldn't represent any nurses as the NPAQ. Well, here we are now in the courts, and we'll see how that goes.
Well, Kay, you're in good hands, and I think
I believe so.
Anyone sitting at home would have complete empathy for you. This is an absolute disgrace, and, you know, let's hope that the Queensland Government can have a heart, because here's a woman who's worked hard all her life. She's an ICU nurse, and they're treating her like this. I think it's a disgrace.